Good morning and welcome to Wisdom for Those Awakening live stream support. My name is Robert Cosmar and I'm an astrologer and a conscious channel. And as usual, if you'd be so kind as to say something in the chat window to let me know if you're hearing the broadcast, that helps me to know that I'm making the proper connection with you. Okay? So I'm going to say something down here, and if you want to go ahead and respond, I would deeply appreciate that. And then, as usual, I'll begin by asking you if there are any questions or concerns that you would like to bring to the discussion before I get into a teaching that I got this morning from my guidance on forgiveness. I think you'll find this very revealing. Okay. All right, Dallas, welcome to the broadcast. State of Awakening, Crystal Blue Persuasion. Okay. Thank you so much for being here. I had a very interesting day today. In the post that I put out over on Substack, talking about forgiving ourselves and why it is so critically important to do that. And I'll be getting into that here in a little bit, but I want to go back again to what I said here a few moments ago. Are there anything that you want to discuss, whether it be astrological or it has to do with meditation or it has to do with what you're going through that you would like to talk about? Okay, because this particular live stream is, again, it's a support to be able to help to address whatever your concerns are. And then if I receive something from my guidance to discuss, then I'll go ahead and bring that in. Um, and hopefully it will be something that you are looking for. Okay. So, anybody want to venture out into the unknown? Um, even if you want to, you can pop in there and say, I don't have anything in particular. That kind of gives me a measuring stick here in terms of how we're moving forward. As you are aware of, I'm sure of, things have continued to escalate. Okay. Okay, great. State of awakening. I just have a very strong feeling that I needed to talk about this morning because there is a lot of confusion about that. Okay. And I'm going to show you why the confusion exists and how you can overcome that. Okay. But things, according to the MAGA Trump plan, seem to be moving forward. There seems to be a lot more anxiety building, which I'm sure that you are, okay, feeling that, and that you're experiencing inside of yourself this battle that's going on. And this battle is, on the one side, is that I can't get caught up in this fear and in this anger that I'm feeling and this hatred that might be laying somewhere inside of you. But maybe you haven't yet found the way to escape or to remove yourself from that feeling. Okay. Well, one of the things I'm hoping to do this morning in this particular topic of forgiveness is to show you how you do that. Okay. And to help you to understand the dynamics. In fact, it's called The Dynamics of Forgiveness, is the title that I put on it. Okay. And again, so how are you? Let me, turn things this way. And by the way, I'm broadcasting on YouTube, Facebook, and also LinkedIn. And I'm hoping that others on Facebook and LinkedIn, if they see this broadcast, will join in. They are able to do that if they would like to. Um, we're here to offer support and to talk about things that are significantly important to our inner healing and also to dealing with the higher dimension of what is going on. And what I mean by that is, what is it that the universe is trying to accomplish by allowing these things that we see happening to go forward? And of course, there's the worry about where will it all end? Okay. If you are significantly within a relationship within yourself to your higher self, if you are able to access the oneness within inside of yourself, you will have far less fear and anxiety about what is happening. because your inner teacher and your guidance are going to do that. Okay? They will give you the direction and guidance as to how to overcome those things. If you are still in the level of your lower conscious state of your mind and your emotions, then you feel haunted almost daily. And every time that you see something on the internet or you happen to glance something on TV, you get that inner cringed feeling, okay, of, oh, my life's falling apart, the world's falling apart, World War III is right around the corner, and all these things, which are essentially your imagination. They're not the truth, okay? So, again, that inner relationship is extremely important, okay, to overcoming the effects of your imagination, okay? Now, one thing I want to bring to your attention as well, which is one of the functions that I have with this software that I'm using, and it's the topic of QR codes. And I'm going to bring one of these codes and put it on the screen here in front of you. Okay. It's called donation. If you feel inclined to want to make a donation to these broadcasts, what you can do with these QR codes, if you're not familiar with them, is to open up your smartphone, put your camera on it, and you'll notice that a little yellow square will go around that. And if you click on that, it'll take you to the website where a donation can be made. And this is one of the benefits of QR codes, is that they make it simple that you don't have to remember links, and I don't have to say them and then you wonder what I said. Okay. And I have several links here to Substack and CJ's Substack and things of that nature that I can put on here that you can go to if you choose to, and to be able to benefit from the energy that is there. Okay, so back to chat. Enough said on that. Okay, so I know that you're familiar with what I'm saying. Okay, what you may not yet be aware of is the inbuilt escape mechanism that we carry within us, okay, within our relationship with our higher conscious states. Okay, and if nobody has anything else that they want to bring forward here, I'm going to go ahead and bring onto the screen here the graphics that I was working on this morning, and we'll talk a little bit about forgiveness, particularly forgiving yourself, because most people throughout their lifetime will carry tremendous guilt, the burden of guilt and even shame for some of the things that maybe they did when they were younger, or maybe some of the things they did last week. Okay. And the habit of judging ourselves is so strong that when these things happen, we shut down. Okay. Have you ever noticed how when a negative state, a negative thought, or a negative emotion creeps into your consciousness, that you feel like you're a million miles away from any inspiration or any guidance, or any love within inside of yourself? This is a part of the conscious knowledge that you encounter as you begin to encounter your higher self within, or your inner teacher. Okay. All right. I'm going to go ahead now and bring over that chart, okay, onto the screen here. And I'm going to expand it, which will make it probably bigger for you on your screen. And of course, you'll see my face down here as well. But the title of this is called The Dynamics of Forgiveness. And I divided it up into two different areas that describe the condition of most of us. One is the condition of living in duality with our mind and our emotions, okay, our programming. The other is called oneness, or where we have, through some form of conscious experience or through meditation, we've developed an inner relationship with our inner teacher or our higher self. And these are two distinctly different approaches to living, but they are something which, for those of us that are aware and awakened, which are here, they are two different things that we encounter almost daily. One of the things that I've noticed over time in regards to the quote metaphysical new age movement, if you'll remember years ago, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, a lot of channeled material would come in, and it was needed, it was purposeful, it gave you a feeling of hopefulness. But oftentimes, what it didn't do was to teach you the nuts and bolts of how you develop a consistent relationship with your higher self, how you discovered conscious knowledge that was deeper and further beyond what it was that maybe that channeled information was talking about. Okay. I found in my own personal experience that a lot of my writing really has to deal with the nuts and bolts. Okay. The conscious nuts and bolts. Okay. Of our awakening process. Okay. So, what is it that we need to come to understand within inside of ourselves? All right. And again, this all begins with meditation. Meditation is the doorway into your feelings, into your conscious knowledge, into your conscious awareness. All right. And it gives you a totally different perspective on the nature of reality. I'm going to make this screen go back up a little bit here. All right. Duality, living in your mind and your emotions. Okay. Separated from a relationship with inside of yourself. It requires a deity or a god. It requires you to have a belief system that uh, thinks that to be forgiven, that you need to reach out and to make some kind of an agreement with this deity or this god, and that all will be forgiven. Well, what happens is that mentally, that may soothe your mind and your emotions for a while. But what you'll find happening is that the same problematic issue ends up coming back, that it haunts you, that uh, unknown, at certain times, maybe certain times of the year or under certain circumstances, this inner sense of maybe guilt and shame from past memory will begin to come into your consciousness because you have been programmed, okay, that in life there is a dualistic system. There is God and Satan, there is good and evil, there is good and bad, which fosters judgment. Okay? And this is all done through a projection of our responsibility. In other words, you do something, you do something you think that is a sin or wrong, and you go to church or you go to confession or you do something, pray, to try to relieve yourself of the burden of that. You're projecting the responsibility for that behavior onto another imaginary being. You haven't dealt deeply enough with inside of yourself consciously, okay, where it needs to be addressed to be healed. And the problem is because you have a belief in duality. All right. This is one of the big problems going on right now with a lot of aware folks. It's that there is a very strong impulse to want to hate Donald Trump and not to consider the fact that he is a tool of the universe and that, yes, he does deal in the realm of dark energy, selfishness, narcissism, and all these things. But he would not be there if it wasn't something that the universe was using. Okay? And if you are a person who is absorbing this duality, this dualistic view of things, then you're dealing with your emotional state mostly. Okay? You're dealing with judgment. Okay? Because you can't yet see the higher purpose for why something is happening. Okay? And this is the difference between duality and oneness. This is why you need to experience the oneness. This is why you need to discover your inner teacher, okay, and your higher guidance. And from time to time here, I'll reduce the size of this screen because I want to see if anybody's put anything in the chat window. So pardon me if it is annoying. Okay, let's see here. Kachinawa, jump across the tracks of the two into the witness. That is correct. Okay. And again, conscious knowledge is the very basic fundamental level of your relationship with your higher self and your inner teacher. This is where you develop the confidence that you're in a relationship that transcends just your mind and your emotions. This is where you come to know the knower, where you develop a honest relationship that you know to be genuine and real. It's not something that you're imagining. Okay? Truly aware and awakened and evolved souls don't imagine their knowledge. They don't imagine the oneness. They know it. They live in it. They swim in it. All right? They've learned to swim in it because it's the only thing that they have ever encountered that helped them to overcome the judgment and the guilt and the shame of many of the things that have happened throughout their lifetime. Okay? This is the cure for guilt and shame and any particular issue that you might be dealing with. Okay? Duality requires a deity or a god or some external being other than yourself to deal with your inner issues. Opposites are needed with duality. Projection of responsibility, where you blame the devil, okay, for what you've done, rather than to consider the fact that inside of yourself there is a deep conscious wound that needs to be healed and that you need to see that wound. This is one of the things that happens in oneness. Okay, I've mentioned this several times over the last few weeks that I've talked about this inner process of our inner growth and healing. Just because you're intuitively aware and awake does not mean you have arrived. You have just begun. And as you begin to develop this inner relationship with your guidance and teacher, and you begin to develop this trust consciously in what it is that you're being taught, you begin to realize that there's much about you that you don't know, but you have suspected. Damage. A lot of it's damage. Okay? And primarily you realize that because you have these little whoopee-ki-yay moments to where you feel blissful, or you may have a smile on your face because something touched your heart. But then you carry around this heavy weight that never seems to absolutely go away. All right? And that has to be investigated. You have to investigate that along with your higher self and your guidance. Now, some people may go to a therapist, and if that's what they need to do, that's fine, okay? But in almost all cases, whether they're a therapist or a psychiatrist, they cannot take you safely into those places within inside of yourself where you can see with your guidance and higher self what the circumstances and what the issue is. Okay, often it's just too painful emotionally for people once they get brought to the river, so to speak, to want to drink, anything from it. Okay, all right. All of this stuff in duality fosters guilt and shame. You feel you've done something wrong because you've been told you did something wrong. All right, this is a product of duality. This is dividing up the universe into God and Satan and saying that they're opposites when in fact they're both contemporaries. Okay? They're working together for the same basic principle. The difference is that we have been given freedom to choose. We can choose at any point in our life to follow a higher path within us or to continue to follow, okay, the programming and the guilt and the shame which comes from our mistakes because we haven't found a way to relieve ourselves from that. Okay? And again, which I mentioned here earlier, Guilt and shame cause judgment. Judgment is, by far, the biggest cause of pain and suffering in your life, whether you realize it or not. All right. This is the reason why, if you enter into the oneness and you enter into a relationship with your higher self and your guidance, you will find out that forgiveness is absolutely essential, even though in the beginning your mind, your emotions, and your ego will tell you that's impossible because you're still attached to them. As you detach from them, okay, you begin to understand why it is so important to forgive yourself and to see yourself as the universe sees you and not as you have been taught to see yourself through some kind of religious programming or some kind of indoctrination, okay, um, by family, by friends, by neighbors, things of this situation. Lastly, over here, what this does is that it restricts conscious growth. You're aware and awake because on some level you want to consciously know yourself. You want to know the truth. But if you are listening to your dualistic nature, or if you are still judging and experiencing guilt and shame, you cannot consciously rise higher to see life, your life, as the universe sees it, as your higher self and your guidance sees it. And as a result of that, you cannot find the key to the door to break free from the guilt and the shame and the judgment. Okay, and I'm going to go back here for a moment. Okay, Dallas, it takes courage to face your inside mind with honesty. You are right about the invisible responsibility. It does take some courage, Dallas, but again, it all depends upon this inner relationship and whether or not you know this relationship. Okay. If a person is still meditating and they are still tied up in their imagination about what they think the inner teacher is, what they think their higher self is, then there's probably some fear. There's a fear of surrender. There's a fear of um, coming to grips with that part of themselves. And oftentimes, your higher self will have to take you into these deep ego busting experiences to where you feel like you're forced to surrender. And this is kind of where humanity is right now. Okay. Humanity is at a place where it has believed in duality for so long and blamed everybody else but themselves that the universe is essentially saying, okay, we've tried through religion and different things like this to kind of give you a clue that going within is where you need to be going, but you're still caught up in the duality. You're still projecting, you're not seeing the universe the way it truly is. Therefore, you don't know how to use your personal power. You're using it against yourself and you're not aware of it because you haven't reached the conscious depth yet of understanding yourself. Okay. The level, the difference between what you experience in the dualistic system versus what you experience in the oneness is that the dualistic system will keep you tied to your imagination about what you think your higher self is, your inner teacher is. Through meditation and through the pursuit of oneness, you discover the truth. You discover the reality. You discover your inner teacher within you. And you'll be quite shocked and amazed when you find that out. Okay? Because no doubt most people think that it's some other being, some other spirit, some other entity. Okay? The truth of the matter is, it is not. It is a different layer of you. It is a different conscious layer of who you are. Okay? That will be a shock, but it's also a comfort. You may sit for a while and go, damn, my higher self is who I am right now. I just haven't been aware of it. Okay. And in that dynamic of that feeling awareness, because these feelings have been evoked, all right, you begin to have this dialogue and you have a sense that you're being guided and you're being taught. And when you have experiences that happen that are unpleasant, you have this inner counselor that can talk to you, okay, and say, okay, this is what you did. This is what was wrong with it. Now you have a choice. Okay. You can follow me deeper into exploring this consciously, or you can bounce back over into judgment and to guilt and to shame. Okay. You see the difference here between the two, where one kind of fosters guilt, shame, and judgment, and the other, is kind of gently guiding you deeper into understanding. Okay. That the only way you can break free from the judgment and the guilt and the shame is not to do that to yourself, okay? And to allow yourself to be experiencing from your inner teacher or your higher self the true nature. And how this all works out is that you begin to experience a difference in your daily life. If you believe in guilt and shame and judgment, then it's almost like every time you turn the corner, something is trying to validate that, because that is your power. That is the power of your mind, your emotions, and your imagination. If you are bound by guilt, shame, and fear. If you are not, if you have begun the process of freeing yourself up through your inner relationship with your higher self and your guidance, you realize that those judgments, that guilt, and that shame, while they were necessary for learning, they were not meant for you to stay chained to them. And the only way that you can break free from that chain is to progressively enter into your relationship with your higher self, which is an elevated sense of self. It is still who you are. You don't lose consciousness of who you are, but you consciously realize another level of yourself where guilt and shame are not a part of the agenda. Forgiveness, okay, is a big part of that. And yes, in the beginning, if you have been hurt by something or by someone and it's been emotionally painful, it almost seems absolutely impossible that you can shake it. Okay. The reason is because you haven't found a way to let go of it. Okay. You know the old saying, let go and let God. All right. Well, to enter into the oneness, you have to let go and let the oneness take over, which is what you encounter as you go into the silence and you allow yourself to feel. And then you allow the universe, your higher conscious state, to begin to interact and to commune with you. Okay? All right, I'm going to stop for a second here. Anybody have any questions at this point? Is what I'm saying clear to you? Does it make sense to you? Do you have anything in it that you disagree with? You're welcome to do that. All right. I don't want to be rambling clear through this entire thing, even though I feel the energy to do so, and not give you the opportunity to address maybe the difficulties that you have in dealing with that. Okay. And again, I'm going to go back to this situation of conscious knowledge. The things that I share with you in my diagrams are the conscious knowledge that my guidance higher self or my inner teacher give to me. Because most likely you are at this state. Okay? As I mentioned earlier on in the broadcast, I see the work that I do is to communicate to you on a very basic level so that you can understand the effect of your mind and your emotions upon you, upon the experiences of your life, and how they can prevent you from going beyond them. Okay. All right. State of Awakening. I really appreciate what you are sharing this morning. It resonates and is well said. Thank you very much. You know, When I first began wanting to do these particular live streams, I had questions about whether or not I really wanted to do them because at that point, I didn't have a real clear view of what it is that I was supposed to do. Okay. And while I value the astrology and I still use the astrology, I recognize that I'm going through an evolutionary process of deeper conscious revelations. And that much of my work is to try to make as real as possible to you what it is that's coming next and how to deal with what you're dealing with. Okay. As you consciously become more aware, as you become a part of that sphere called your higher self, your inner teacher, what you look at is your behavior. You begin to investigate your behavior. Okay. If you think about it, in any particular area of life, you have to begin with the basics. In sports, in technology, in motherhood, fatherhood, you have to begin with the basics. You have to understand them. You have to understand the basics of the way you operate, of how you think, of what triggers your emotions, of what keeps you down. Okay? Judgment keeps you down. Okay? There are those, when I say that, will feel guilty about that because they have been taught to feel guilty about that. They don't know whether that's the truth or not. They've not experienced the love of their higher self concerning that issue. They fall back mentally and emotionally on what they were taught in Bible school or church or growing up in their family. They're still imprisoned to those old beliefs and ideas. You see? And this is the question that you have to ask yourself in regards to what you're doing with your life. If you're committed to meditation and to an inner walk, a higher conscious walk, okay? Am I shooting myself in the foot? Am I paralyzing myself? Okay? Am I still stuck in my religious imagination? And I don't really know. Nothing wrong with that. You know, I've been through that phase. We all go through that phase. But again, that speaks back to your level of commitment to your guidance and your higher self. They're not playing. Okay. Your higher self and your guidance is not playing. All right. They're also not cruel in the sense that they're going to force you to have that agreement with them and that relationship with them. You have to want that. You have to see somehow through your life the importance and significance of an inner search for your true self. Okay. Otherwise, what happens is that your mind and your mental body will beat you up. Okay. And you know what that feels like. I'm going to expand the screen here one more time. Okay. Over here, what happens in the oneness? Meditation is the key. We must establish an inner relationship with ourselves. And you see here, this is the difference between duality and belief in things and oneness and experiencing a relationship with inside of yourself. It's very personal and very private and becomes very real. All right. And it leaves it leaves no doubt. Okay. Once it's established, it leaves no doubt. Um, there was a lady on the internet the other day in Facebook that used a word that I love to use because it is so true. Okay. When you are committed to your inner relationship to your higher self, you become aligned with it. You resonate with it. You become in sync with it. And as you learn these basics of how guilt, shame, and judgment keep you down, make you miserable, make you feel guilty, okay, and not quite worth it, all right? What you realize in the oneness is that you are creating and have always created your reality. If you go deeper into this, you'll realize it is predestined. You have chosen the courses that you're taking in life through your career, your relationship, your day to day activity, your relationship with your children. The issues that you have there are issues you have within inside of yourself, and they are helping you to see yourself. Okay? This is where many people in relationships stumble and fall, is that they project hurtful circumstances onto their partner. That shuts the partner down. They've already begun the process of shutting them down. And then it may take them days, if they're lucky, okay, to get to a place to where they find out that forgiveness is a whole lot better than judgment and fighting. Okay? And growth is the benefit. If you accept personal responsibility for your life, excuse me, and the events that you bring into your life, then you have a great chance of learning and growing from them. Okay? Of being taught about them. Only we can punish or forgive ourselves. This is a very, very important point. Okay? If you, let's say you go to God over here, you go to a confessional, and you say you did this, you did that, but you don't know why you did it. Okay? You're going to do it again. In the oneness, if you do something and it's painful and hurtful to you and to another, you're going to find out pretty quick. You can't excuse it. You can't turn your back on it. You can't deny it. You have to own it, because it's what's creating the life that you're living. It's what's causing the event to come back again and again and again. Okay? All right. And the effect of that is only we can find the key to forgive ourselves, because if we don't, we're going to punish ourselves. Our reality mirrors our inner state. Our reality mirrors our inner state. I've mentioned before how years ago I worked with a deep trance channel. And one of the things that the particular guide used to tell this group of people that were working with them, because we would have periods where they would say something extremely profound and extremely highly conscious, and then we would ask questions. And one of the favorite comments that the entity would come back with was, you think you think. Okay? You think that because you're intuitive or telepathic that you know it all. Well, you think you think. You think you know what the universe has got planned for you and for the world. You think you think. Okay? When you could know, when you could understand, when you could take control of the steering wheel of your own life and begin to drive it to a higher destination, to where it is you're supposed to be going. Many who are aware and awake are not significantly along the path of their evolution yet. This is why the fear is being instigated. Okay? It's to make you make a decision whether or not you're going to cater to the fear, hope that some invisible imaginary inner being is going to get you through it all, or whether or not you go within and establish this viable connection consciously within inside of yourself and realize. It's why they call it self-realization. It is understanding through knowledge and experience who and what you are beyond your mind and your emotions. Okay? If that is not where you are, then you're still being pulled by fear and doubt into these lower dualistic energies. All right? The universe is one energy, and it's not divided. It's divided because we see life dualistically. But at the higher levels of consciousness, it is not divided. It is one energy. Okay? Exactly, Kanchanala. Realize the one is your higher self. As you become your higher self, it's like a clarity overtakes you for the first time. It's a clarity that is conscious, that is beyond mental thought and emotion. It is an identifiable feeling of knowing that you have arrived to a place consciously within inside of yourself that transcends all of the dualistic things you have been doing. Okay? That is the purpose of awakening. Awakening to what? To a new birth. If you want to go to a biblical standpoint, everlasting life. Okay? There was a statement I saw the other day on Facebook where it was supposedly the Buddha had made this comment. He said that for those who are awakened, they know not fear. Okay? Because you are in a human body and still maybe believing that that's all there is to you, and because you do not know the fullness of who you are through an inner relationship with your higher self and your guidance, you don't know how to escape that fear. But that's how all of the masters and the gurus and the mystics and the awakened ones do it. Okay? They do not allow their imagination, their mind, and their emotions dominate who they are. It is a temporary belief structure, okay, that can only be overcome when you transcend it consciously and enter into a deeper, fuller relationship through your feelings in meditation. Okay, it is a totally different awareness of who you are. And it's what the universe is attempting to do. And it's why the pressure is being applied. Okay. And it's why I've encouraged for many weeks now that if you're being tempted to find out what's happening in the world by going back to MSNBC or Fox News or CNN or ABC or whatever, okay, what you're going to see there is what sells advertising. All right. There may be a little bit of truth in there, but most of what you're going to see is advertising. Okay. And it's going to have fear as a motivational factor behind it. All right. If you want to look at Trump's antics on a different level, okay, he is allowed to use lies and fear to shake up the belief structure that humanity has embraced, that America has embraced. All right. To sift out those that wish to consciously evolve. And for those that have chosen not to karmically, that's okay. The end result will not be the same, okay? But there's no judgment. And this is the thing I know that's difficult to understand because mentally and emotionally, we want to hold on to this physical life, even though it has mixtures of pain and pleasure. And along with our ego, which defends that, all right, we don't want to lose this. Even though there's a part of us inside at times that would love to escape this, okay, without having to go through the personal pain and misery of death and dying and stuff. Well, there is a way. Okay, there is a way. Years ago, I was in my brother's basement back home. My brother used to be a fireman paramedic in Columbus, Ohio. And down in the basement, he had pictures of dead bodies on the wall. Years ago, I tried to go into the Ohio State Highway Patrol. We had to go down into a basement to take a written test. On the wall were pictures of dead bodies. Okay, now, going back to my brother, the thing that shocked me was that I looked at one of the pictures. Here was a car, the roof had been ripped off. The front up to the window, which was gone, was demolished. And both people, with their eyes open, were in that front car. And there wasn't a scratch on them. And I looked at that and I went, what the hell was that? You know? And I talked to Rick about it. And he said, oftentimes in accidents, just the sheer force of the blow will kill them. And that's when I realized you don't have to die to be out of your body. And that's why oftentimes people talk about the effect of astral travel. You know, oftentimes through her writing and through talking, CJ has talked about the beautiful, wonderful experience that she had being out of her body. And it all simply happened one night as she went to or started to go into sleep. But prior to going into sleep, she left her body. Okay. And she met her guidance. And I've mentioned many times, I astral project into the astral, but I don't travel into the astral plane. It's not been my truth up to this point. And it really isn't all that significant as long as I'm aligned with my higher self and my guidance. And it doesn't matter to you if you're aligned with your higher self and your guidance. And by the way, who you are now, where you are now, what you're going through is perfectly where you're supposed to be. Okay? There's no judgment involved in this. It's simply what I'm trying to do to you here is to show you that within you there is a choice, there is a path. One leads in one direction, the other leads into another direction. One will take you higher, one will keep you a lot lower. Okay? Okay, Beck, welcome to the broadcast. Good to see you here. Okay? One of the things, too, that I've noticed here over the last couple of weeks, and I subtly suspected this would happen, I used to have anywhere from, let's say, 20 to 25 people that would join me in these live streams. Now, what I see happening is that I have the cream of the crop here. And as I began to go through changes in myself over on the Astrology of Life channel, I haven't had that much of a situation where people are leaving, okay? But I've sensed that there's a shyness to want to deal with the topics that I'm talking about here. Well, I know that I can't forever stay doing astrology videos because the world's evolving and I'm evolving and you're evolving. And we have to be discussing those things that are important to that evolution. Okay? Our astrology is a fine tool. Tarot is a fine tool. Psychics can be a fine tool. Okay? All of those things can also be a tremendous hindrance if you worship them. Okay? The only way to break free from that situation is the earnest, committed relationship within yourself. Okay? And in the beginning, it's not easy to do. If you've done it 100 times and you still don't get beyond your imagination, or you still see a black screen and nothing else, okay, it's very, very frustrating. But it also measures your level of commitment and whether or not you're ready, whether or not the universe and your higher self realizes you are ready. Okay? Because commitment it's the key. It's the answer. Okay. Let's see here. Beck, good morning. Just catching the end of today's event. Interesting. I shall rewatch when I'm able. Well, good. I think that you'll enjoy this. I think that anybody that actually has a chance to actually watch this will gather a very significant and important beginning to where do you begin? All right? Where do you begin? Where is your guidance going to take you if you establish that relationship with your inner teacher? What's going to be the basics? Okay? And you can go no further until you learn the basics. Okay? So, again, we have about 4 minutes left. Anybody have any comments or questions on what we've talked about today? And do you enjoy this type of teaching or discussion about these different aspects to what's going on inside of you? it definitely helps me to know how you feel about what it is that I'm sharing with you. Okay, because we can go a lot deeper. And my feeling is that over the foreseeable future, that on a weekly basis, I'm able to investigate deeper into certain things. But I don't feel like it's going to be so far advanced that you'll be scratching your head wondering what in the world they're talking about. That would be kind of counterproductive for all of us. So I'll just say that I feel like there's things that need to be talked about and discussed to help you, you know, to steer your ship maybe on a different course than the one that you've been on. Okay? So, anybody have any comments? Is this something that resonates with your experience and your relationship with your guidance and your higher self? Okay? And understand this too. If something resonates you in the process of what it is that I'm talking about, and you feel like that you want to share that, go ahead and share that. I don't need to dominate the entire hour. In fact, I know that for this type of live stream support to be truly effective, all right, it needs those who are watching to share what insights they are getting. Okay, that builds an energy of excitement. It also triggers off my higher self. Okay, okay, Dallas, thank you so much. Okay, Beck, thank you. State of Awakening. Today's topic was spot on for me. One thought I have is that even when we engage with outer teachers, is it actually the inner teacher we make contact with? Okay. You may have missed this. I said this earlier, and this is the best way I can explain this to you from an experience. Right now, the person that you are is all that you need. You are your higher self, but you're not consciously aware of it because you're distracted by your mind and your emotions and your imagination. As you consciously evolve, you will realize that your inner teacher is just another part of yourself. And they'll make that very clear. That is the mystery, and that is the magic, and that is the amazement that I have come to understand as progressively as I have opened that door within inside of myself, is that what I've encountered, even though I have names for certain guides up to this point, I recognize that those are labels. What I'm encountering is my higher self, and that higher self is me. It's a more consciously aware me. It's a more clear aware me. Okay. And again, these things will not make sense to you unless and until you experience them yourself. Because what we're talking about, even what I'm talking about here, okay, these are ideas to a degree. For many of you that are with me today, they resonate with you because you're aware. All right. What I've done here is to focus your attention on specifics, because this is what happens when you deal with your guidance and your higher self, is that they begin to show you specifics of why you are not more empowered, not more clear, not more certain. Okay. Welcome, Joey. Welcome to the broadcast. I think you'll like this video, Joey, if you get a chance to watch it when I post it. Been a lot of energy this morning. Okay. State of Awakening, does that make sense? Okay. Does that make sense to you? I know that if you haven't had the experience in your mind and your emotions, you're thinking about what you have heard or seen about Jesus or read about Buddha and Muhammad and stuff. But the reality of it is that as you go deeper within inside of yourself, it is you in a different form. And it will always be you in a different form. Okay. And I know that kind of blows your mind. It did mine. Okay. Kachinala, this is the sea that sets our soul free to mine the golden vein beneath it all. Excellent, Kachinala. You're waxing poetical from your higher conscious inner being. Okay, Dallas, self-forgiveness is very difficult. Takes time and willingness to understand self in a different realm. And Dallas, that's true to a degree, but it's also instantaneous. Also, it is instantaneous. Once you have that clear connection and you experience the self love and forgiveness within yourself, you know that whatever transgression you are holding against yourself is absolved. That's the magic of your higher self. That's the gift of oneness. Okay? That's the power of what it is that I'm sharing with you here. Okay? Is that reality, that relationship is very genuine and very real, and it will set you free. Okay? It'll set you free. Doesn't mean you won't at times fall back down. Okay? Doesn't mean you don't have lessons that you're going to be taught that are challenging and painful. Doesn't mean you won't have another dark night of the soul. All right. But what it does do is that it gives you a concrete platform that you can trust and you'll understand, and you won't feel fear as strongly as what you did when you were out there in your mind and your emotions. Okay. I think we're done for today. And I hope that this particular session has been helpful to you. I look forward to sharing more with you if that be the way that it's ordained to be. And I hope to see you all next week. And we'll try to go in whatever direction it seems that the world is going. Okay? Have a great day, everybody, and a great week.